Welcome to Roadmap to 1 Million. My name is Stacey Zeal, and if you're looking to make more money, gain your time back, and rapidly grow your visibility so that you can impact way more people with your brilliance, you're in the right place. This podcast is your one-stop shop for turning your online business dreams into a reality. My main goal is to give women entrepreneurs just like you the marketing strategies, guidance, and expert insights you need to hit that $1 million milestone and beyond. Whether you're a coach, a consultant, or an online brand that wants to make a big impact, Roadmap to 1 Million gives you the actionable strategies and inspiration you need so that you can implement right away, no fluff, no fuss. So CEO, are you ready to buckle up and accelerate your growth? Be sure to follow the show and let's dive in. Get ready to uncover your roadmap to 1 million. Hey there, fellow entrepreneurs. Are you doing all the things but hit a revenue ceiling? You're building an audience, you're creating content and making sales, but you feel like something is holding you back from your next milestone. If that sounds like you, it's time to take our What's Your Missing Marketing Link quiz, your go-to tool to identify what's missing from your marketing strategy that might be holding back your business growth. Whether it's fixing your funnel or diversifying your efforts, this quiz will pinpoint those marketing missteps and guide you to success. Take the quiz today and uncover the missing link in your path to 7 figures and beyond. So head over to staceyzeal.co/quiz because success begins with identifying and fixing those mistakes. So don't miss out. Your business deserves to have the impact you desire. Visit staceyzeal.co/quiz. That's STACYZEAL.co/quiz to get a detailed report and the resources you need to help you grow. All right, let's jump back into the episode. All right, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Roadmap to 1 Million. I am your host, Stacey, and I am excited to bring y'all another expert guest today. And this time we are talking to someone who has been there and done that. We are talking to someone who has built a successful agency, who has other successful businesses. And as you can tell by the title, we're going to be talking about building your team and how to really kind of start to remove yourself from the middle of your business and not being the person that has to have your hands in everything, but how do you find those really, really great team players to put on your team so that way you can start to free up your time as a CEO. And so I am excited to welcome our guest, Natasha, today. So welcome to the podcast, Natasha. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Good. I'm excited to have you. We actually had a coffee chat and I just was like, oh my gosh, I just would love for you to talk about, your hiring, and you mentioned that you've had people on your team for a very, very, very long time. And so I thought that you'll be a great guest to talk to our listeners about that, because a lot of us are in this place where, either we are a solopreneur transitioning into hiring a team, or we have like one or two other, people on our team. And so we see the value in having a team, but there's a lot of challenges that come up when people are looking to build and retain a team, especially as a remote team. A lot of us out there with remote teams as well. But before we get into all the good stuff, please tell us a little bit about your background, your journey, what you do, all the things.
Sure, absolutely. Oh my God. Well, no, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I have run my own business since I was essentially 13 years old. I am an entrepreneur, very, very grateful for that. And most of all, I have now I have 3 teenagers, but once upon a time I had 3 very little kids and a husband who worked a lot, and I was trying to grow a business. And so I had 3 under 3. And if any other moms out there listening to that, I'm sure you're like you have a heart attack, right? Just like, oh my God. And so I knew that if I was ever going to grow my business and be the mom that I wanted to be, I couldn't do everything. I couldn't do my own payroll, and I couldn't do my own admin. And so very, very, very early in my businesses, I started bringing in support. So first hire being a bookkeeper, second hire being a web designer, third, I run a web design and development agency. Third hire being, virtual assistants, fourth hire being and it just kind of went on. And because I just knew that me doing everything was just going to take away from my ability to be with my kids. I love sports. I love fitness. I was really committed to staying healthy. And I knew if I was working 50 hours a week, something would have to give, right? I would either have to sacrifice some places I didn't want to sacrifice. So I got really, really good at finding, hiring, onboarding, retaining amazing people. The guy who designed my logo 9 years ago is still working on the team, and my first hire is still on the team from like 9 years ago, and knock wood, never had anybody quit. And we're an entirely remote contractor team, 0 employees, and just so grateful. Yeah, I have an incredible crew, a really incredible crew. So
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your background with us, because I think it's so important for us as business owners to kind of keep in mind that we do have a life and that we do want to live our life. And so, and that's, I think, a lot of times, a lot of reasons some of us even started our businesses is because like maybe our corporate job was taking up too much of our time. But we wanted to be present in our life and be present with our kids and all these other, kinds of obligations that we have. And so I think it's just really important for our listeners out there, myself included, for all of us to understand that, we can't do it alone and we don't have to do everything, right? Like, I think that that's also this kind of like, there's this kind of like, trap of like, okay, I need to do everything, right? Like I need to be, superwoman. I have to do everything. If I don't put my hands in it, it's not going to be right. So what do you kind of say to those people who are a little hesitant to, not necessarily, well, let me rephrase. Not that they're hesitant to hire a team. They're more worried about transitioning the work to someone else, right? Like that, like we have to kind of like reframe their mindset, I guess, around why it's better for them to not do everything.
Oh, that's a great question. And I get that a lot. I run an agency. I obviously run an agency. That was my primary business. But in the last 4 years, I started business coaching where I teach people about how to build great teams. And the thing that we don't say is that hiring is not, all people are not equally a good fit, right? And so when I do my training and I speak on webinars or I speak on podcasts, it's like the key is in finding awesome people. Because when you have someone who is awesome and you like them and you trust them and they do great work and they're good communicators and they're reliable and they're consistent, we don't have the same fear.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's terrifying when someone's not that good. And we trust them and they drop the ball, or we trust them and they do a bad job, or their quality is not, or the communication's off. It's hard as hell. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on your podcast, but it's like it's hard. It's hard to trust when the person is not trustworthy. So my clause that I always tell people when I'm teaching about hiring is like, we're not hiring for the sake of hiring. We are hiring to find someone brilliant, like someone who is better than you at what you do. Like that's the goal. Like in a world of 8 billion people, there is someone in the world who is better than you at what you do. And if we think about, okay, in any given day, let's imagine that we do 10 things. I'm just going to pick 10, for example. Maybe out of 10, there's 2 that we as the CEO, we as the founder, we as the leader, we as the visionary should do. But the other 8, very, very likely, we may think we're really awesome at it. But I guarantee it, if you hire someone who's actually like in that thing all the time, they are going to be better than you.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. It's so exciting. Like I know for me, the times that I've hired people and they come in and within a week of doing something, they're better at it than me than after like 8 years of doing it. It's very humbling. And you're like, you know what? Why did I wait so long? Like, why was I killing myself in something that, and I think that's the first step is to actually have someone on your team that you trust. Because if you don't trust them, you're never going to want to delegate anything, right? Yeah. It's terrifying. So that's the unwritten thing when it comes to hiring is has to be someone. How do you find someone excellent? And excellent is subjective. Excellent is completely subjective, right? Depending on what I want, what you want, what we need. But knowing what excellent means to you and going to get that person. Like I look at hiring as like, you're going in like, you know what you want and you are finding it. You're going in like a laser. You're not going in like with a hope and a prayer. You're like, I know what I want and I am going to go get it. So that to me is like this laser focus hunter strategy, as opposed to, oh, let's see who applies and let's hire who I like the most. No. Like you need to know. And then it's like a placing. It's like you here. So being very intentional, I find it's not luck at all. it's intentionality, knowing how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That is such a great way, I think, to reframe our minds around hiring, like the piece about, hiring someone that you trust, right? Like hiring someone who's excellent, but then there's more than just, okay, they're really good at their job, but do I trust this person to be able to give them stuff and to get executed, right? Like, how do I figure out what I need? I think that's another question that I think about, because, like, for me, I've been growing my team. We just had someone come on board, at the time I was recording a couple months ago. So now there's 3 of us. And she's amazing. She's excellent at what she does. I'm just like, yeah, like I'm so excited. And she's doing great. And so I feel like I'm like, okay, well, how do you know who you need on your team? And when you think about, the different roles that we have to hire for, like, how do you figure out what excellent means to you? Because that's another thing I think that was important that you said, is that you have to define what excellence means to you. And I think that that's so genius, because excellence is, subjective. And how do you figure out, one, what is that, like, what does your team need to look like? And then 2, how do you determine what excellence looks like in the different roles that you'll be hiring for, especially if you're hiring for roles that are not in your zone of genius? Like, I know a lot of people who listen to this podcast, they're not marketers, but they need a marketing person on their team. And so how do I define excellence for a team member that I don't have necessarily that kind of, like, ability to say whether they're good at their job or not, or whether they're excellent or not?
No, that's a great question, because I run a web development team, but I've never built a website in my life. So I can definitely speak to that, because we are like custom fancy tech, and I have no idea what my team does. Literally no idea. I've never done it. I don't know what they do. I could not tell you with a gun to my head, like, how they do their job. And 9 years later, and it's like, but it just goes to show I know how to hire great people. I don't have to be a developer to hire a great developer, right? So to go back, I'll answer that question about, I think it's a 2-part question. One, how do you decide what excellence means to you? And then B, how do you, like, hire outside of your skill set, right? Outside of your core competency. So excellence to me it's like a mix of hard skills, soft skills, right? So hard skills being, okay, like right now I'm interviewing for a new virtual assistant. I need very specific skills. I need them to know how to use LinkedIn. I need them to know how to edit videos. I need them to know how to, whatever the technical thing is, right? Like, to be able to, so the first, okay, so I'm gonna go back. So one more question before to answer what you were saying. How do you decide what you want them to do? Okay, the first thing that you want to outsource, if you're new to hiring, or you're like ready for your next hire, is what do you know that needs to get done, but you personally never, ever do it? Like, something you procrastinate all the time. And it's something important. Like, generally to me, I know I need to hire when I've had something on my to-do list and I keep moving it forward, moving it forward, moving it forward, moving it forward. And 2 weeks later, still on my to-do list, and I've never done it. Like, and it's probably not even that hard. It's just, I don't want to do it. Like, I just don't want to I just don't want to deal with this. And so to me, that's always where I look at, like, okay, if this has to get done and it's staying on the to-do list, but I'm proving to myself over and over, I'm not going to do it. Okay, I need to bring in someone else. Like, I'll tell myself every day, okay, today's the day, I'm going to do this thing today. And no, it's not going to happen today. So that's where I just have to be honest with myself. Like, if this legit needs to get done and I'm proving to myself I'm not going to do it, I need some help. And it might only be 5 hours a week. It might be like, it might not be a huge full-time hire, right? It might just be something simple. It might be a contract person, $5 an hour for 5 hours a week, and like, just whatever. But it's kind of like, so I like to look at things like, okay, what are the things that need to get done that I'm not doing? What are the things I'm already doing, but I don't like doing? That's another thing. And then what are things that I wish were getting done, like in the fantasy land of like growing my business to the next level, that aren't on the list yet? No one's doing them, but I would love it. Like for me, one of my goals last year was I wanted to document all my business SOPs. And 8 years in, never done it. I've had the same team for the whole time. So like, we all know the thing. So there was never a reason to document it. But I just started feeling very, very compelled. Like, I need to write this down in the case like I bring in more people or whatever, right? And so I hired someone as a project manager, and she helped me write end to end all the SOPs. And it wasn't something I needed. I still don't need it, but it's something that I knew I wasn't going to do. I really wanted it done. So stuff like that, like, it's kind of, so then determining excellence, I think part of it is, okay, yeah, obviously hard skills, like, do they know the software? Like, for example, if you're a team that uses ClickUp, obviously you're going to want to hire someone who probably knows a thing or two about ClickUp, or not, maybe, but it doesn't matter. Like, there's certain hard skills. Like, if I'm hiring a web developer, obviously I'm going to need a certain skill set for that. They're going to have to know certain coding languages and how to do certain things. But to me, what is also as important as a hard skill is like their personality. So for me, I know that I work very well with certain types of personalities and very not so well with other personalities. Like, I know who gets me and who likes me and who doesn't.
Mhm.
And I'm fine with that. Like, I know not everybody gets my vibe as a boss. And I know what kind of people really love working with me and those people who really, really don't. And knowing that is so important to know what to interview for.
Mhm.
Like, so it's kind of like understanding someone's personality. Like, just as an example, I run a very technical business, but I'm a no tech person. So my team, my tech people work client facing. So we work kind of like in groups. So my developers talk to my clients. So I cannot hire a web developer with bad people skills. Like, it's not going to fly on my team. Like, they have to be courteous and gracious and patient and clear and warm and open and calm and still be incredibly technically proficient, because they have to cover me, because I can't have that conversation about their API integration. I cannot have that conversation. So I bring them in. So to me, the personality of someone like that, someone incredibly gracious and warm and calm and patient and like non-negotiable, right? Like, and to me, the second thing is like, personality wise, as just as an example, is I love someone who's like a little edgy. Like, they're a little bit badass. Like, they will tell me if I'm wrong. Like, I don't want yes men on my team. So like, I want people to feel that safe to like be brave and try and make a mistake and give me some pushback. And like, so like, just as an example, so personality, like, so when I'm interviewing, I am looking for these cues of someone who's kind of got that like edge, right? Like, I don't want someone who's going to be like, and sometimes in an interview process, I'll like lay out a really bad idea, which is obviously a very bad idea. And I'll be like, what do you think? And I want them to tell me, really? Like, that's what you want to do? But if they're like, yeah, that sounds good, I'm like, no, obviously it's a terrible idea. Like, if you agree with me that this is a good idea, you're fired. Like, no, my God. Like,
Yeah.
so you kind of test for like someone who's assertive and has some backbone. Like, to me, that's a thing, right? Not everybody, right? So to me, when I'm hiring, it's like, okay, the skill set, yes, hard skills has to be there. People skill, like the soft skills, obviously, yes, they have to be there. Someone very, like, I always look for someone who's very autonomous, because the problem people have with a lot of hiring when they hire teams is like, they feel like they're babysitting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, like, if you need me, why do I need you if you need me to do your job? Like, the whole point of me hiring you is so I don't have to do it. So that's one of the pluses of not knowing how my team does anything, is because they never ask me for help, because I don't know, they know I don't know, right? So it's kind of like, they ask me and I'm like, sorry, dude, you're on your own. Like, call the tech support. I don't know. And I mean, they're billing me for their time to debug whatever they're doing. But my team, when I hire people, it's like, if someone is not independent and autonomous, to me on my team, that's not going to work. So things like that. So I think like everybody should make their list, like, okay, with your personality. And some people like that yes man who's just going to take orders and do the thing and not give me any feedback and not give me any grief, right? But some people want that. They don't want someone who's kind of like edgy and pushy, right? Where I'm like more like edgy and pushy. And so figuring out what works for you, figuring out, like, for example, time zones. Like, I do not work outside of certain hours. So everyone has to work on my schedule. No questions. Like, if you need me, if you are going to need me to do your job at some point during the day, if you're not going to overlap with my schedule at some point, don't apply. No, like, I'm not going to be checking my email at 5 p.m. Like, if that's when you start, like, no. So it's like knowing our lifestyle, right? Like, knowing is a huge thing. I think another thing that people don't really talk about is like, once you have someone on your team, knowing what they need to feel loved and supported on the team. So like, there's a book I love called like The 5 Love Languages. I don't know if you've read that book, but it's a relationship book. Originally, it's like a marriage book, right? Yeah. But it's the same. It's a people book. It's like, how do people, and so really being intentional about figuring out who needs what on your team to feel connected, to feel loved, to feel included, to feel valued. And then me as the boss, my intention is to create an incredible place for them to work so they want to stay, right? Because with contractors, there's no contract. They could walk any day of the week, right? Like there's no obligation. I don't pay them any benefits. There's nothing they have no reason to stay other than because they want to.
Yeah.
So I do not take that for granted. And I make it worth their while to be on this team every single day. Like appreciation and giving them challenges and knowing what my people need to feel that they love their job.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then to hire, to your question, I don't know if that answers. So, but before I go on about the hiring outside my skill set, does that speak to organizing what you need and excellence? Does that answer that question?
Yeah, that answered that question great. And it made me start to think about, so I have taken a strengths test. I took the Clifton strengths test a few years ago. And I didn't take it for the purposes of hiring, but the point was that I kind of really started to understand what I bring energy to, like what kind of tasks and kind of things I can bring a lot of energy to versus things that I just really don't want to do. And so for me, I very much am I'm a relationship builder. Those are my top 5 strengths are relationship building skills. Learning, I love to learn, right? That's one of my top 5. And it's interesting because executive function kind of stuff is very much at the bottom. I do not like to do the execution of things. I'm the visionary. I like to have the idea. I like to be able to, conceptualize and strategize with clients and really kind of figure out how do we connect the dots. I love to analyze data and all that kind of stuff. But actually creating the plan or writing the plan out, I want people on my team to do that because I want to be able to give it to you and then you take it and put it into something digestible. And so it made me think about when you were talking about, knowing who you work with best or what kind of personalities you work with best. I am very great at working with type A people because I'm not type A. I very much am I'm maybe somewhere between a type A, type B, because I'm very organized, but I also am very floaty. I need my free time. I need my space. I need my, and so I need people on my team who are very detail oriented, who are okay, Stacey, I know you want to go from A to Z, but we still have, B, C, D, et cetera, that we have to do in order to get there. Right. And so, and needing someone who can and I thought that was such a great example that you gave about how your developers are client facing. So you have to make sure that not only are they good at, their hard skills and actually coding and all that kind of stuff, but they need to be able to explain it to somebody who's not a coder, right? They need to be able to talk to somebody and communicate with somebody who is not at that same level that they're at with their client. So I thought you definitely answered the question. I think it's really important for us to keep thinking about yes, it's important to have the hard skills. Yes, it's important to to know how to run Facebook ads or to have someone who, knows social media and stuff like that if you're hiring for a marketing hire. But also keeping in mind that do they work well with you? People maybe if you're neurodivergent, right? Maybe you need somebody who can understand that, right? Maybe I need you to ping me 3 or 4 times in order for you to get stuff done. And if that's going to annoy you, then, that's fine. Then maybe that's not the person for you. So I thought it was just a great breakdown of how you can kind of put yourself in the seat of being intentional with who you're hiring and who you want to work with. And it's okay for you to find those kinds of people, because I think that that's also a part of the conversation of oh, this person's a rock star. They have this great, fantastic resume, but I don't get along with it. But no. Can I hire them because they know what I'm doing, right? Yeah, it sounds like... Well,
in my opinion, on teams, you generally, even if it's virtually, you spend a lot of time together. Even if it's only for Slack, I run a 0 meeting system, in my business, we never, ever have meetings, for anything. But it's but we're talking on Slack all day to each other, and you become friends. And so if you don't like this person, I like to explain it, if you're not excited to wake up and work with your people, something's off. You want to go to work. You have to want to be with these people, right? And so it's fun. It's really important to me that, I have to like you. But a lot of women, I'm going to speak to women on this, is we do it backwards, where we hire someone we like and we don't look at their hard skills. So it's both. It is both. If someone cannot code, but I like them, they're not going to get the job, right? But if someone can code and they're kind of a dick, no, like it's both or nothing, right? And so sort of like, and also too, like in the work culture, like we're not a very, and in the culture, another thing to think about is like, we're not a very like, we're not like a, let's meet on Fridays and play board games virtually. We're not that team, right? Like we're very like, get her done. Like we're here to work. Yes, I love you, but we don't chit chat like, hey, how was your weekend? Like that's just not the vibe on my team. Right. And I've had people who have told me, they're like, oh my God, I would never work for you because you're so impersonal about how you run things. And I was like, well, in my culture, most web people are very introverted. Like, so in my work culture, we don't want to talk about our stuff to each other. Like, we don't want to do that. And we don't have to do that. Like, the bond is not based around having this like go for coffee, Christmas presents kind of culture. It's so knowing that if someone is super social and super like needs a lot of connection and time to chit chat, that's not going to vibe on our team, right? So it's like, it's kind of like you said, it's like giving yourself permission to own it, like what you are, what you're not. And sometimes it takes time to kind of figure it out, right? But it's like, I remember this one time I had this assistant and she would always ask me, like this was years ago, and she ended up going in a different direction with her career. But I remember she'd always be like, hey, Natasha, how was your weekend? What'd you get up to? And I was like, so after a while, I was like, I just told them like, look, I appreciate the interest, but I'm like, you don't have to ask me that. Like, and I remember she was like, she sent me this like crying emoji. And I was like, okay, I'm like, I understand that that may be interpreted as disrespectful, but I'm like, you as my service provider do not have to do that.
Yeah.
And she still, and I remember she was kind of like really confused, right? But so I think like I remember saying that to somebody and they're like, you are so evil. Like, what is wrong with you? But I was like, but it's like, no, but it's like, I know what I'm like. I know how my team, and I've never had anybody quit. So it's like, it works for some people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's knowing that. So it's like when you're filtering, if someone's super introverted and shy and your team is super sociable and let's hang out on Wednesdays for coffee, like have a virtual coffee with the team, it's going to be hard for them.
Yeah.
Right. That's fine, but they might be great on my team. You know, but they might be great on your team. And then, so I think that's always excellence. It's not just the person, it's the culture too. Like, are they going to fit on this team? Like,
Yeah.
are they going to vibe with the people who are already there? If there's people there.
Yeah.
I think, and then in terms of hiring outside your skill set, I do that all the time. Like I literally have never built a website. I've never designed a site, done QA, or developed a website, and everyone on my team does that. And so what I do in those cases, if I don't know how to evaluate the talent, is I contract in someone to do it for me, like as a consultant. So like let's imagine, like I've never done paid ads of any kind, but let's imagine I wanted to hire somebody. I might say, you know, hey Stacy, can I pay you $250? And you talk to him.
Yeah.
And I pay you to consult and
Yeah.
you vet the guy.
Yeah. I think
Right.
that's
And it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know. And I'm not willing to figure it out. Like I remember when I was hiring like a React developer and I'm like, I don't even know what React is. Right. But I had a job and we needed a React guy. And now my guy knows, but at the time he didn't know. And so I was like, okay, well, let's bring someone in. And so I went through my network. I'm like, hey, who can like help me interview and screen a React developer? And I did the personal interview to make sure that I actually like this person. Like I did that part. But the ones I had kind of a handful of people that I liked doing that soft skill part, like then I sent them for like, they all did a technical test. They all had like a technical interview, but I didn't do that because I wouldn't know how to read their code and see if it was any good. And then, but I paid someone for their time, like as a consultant to help me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's generally how I do it because I'm not going to gamble and hire someone who I can't vet them. Another thing is you can check references. That's a really good one. If you're hiring contractors, obviously a lot of times online they have reviews. Like if you're hiring or something, I love hiring through platforms like that because you can read all their reviews, like before you interview them. Yeah. You can see if they're any good. And my bias in hiring virtual teams is to always hire people who have some sort of online something. So you're just cutting out so much headache by seeing their portfolio and, you know, like all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that all of that is just, it's so, one, I think it's a sense of, it's freeing in a sense that like, you know, you don't have to build a team based on people who just come your way, right? Like, you know, okay, I got 10 applicants, I got to find the best one out of these 10, but Most of
Yeah.
them I really don't like their personality, or the other ones I really just, I don't think it's going to work. So it's
Yeah.
really about saying like, okay, like if I know that my team is not really social, and I get on an interview with somebody and they're like supremely social and they're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
how are you doing? How was your day? I love your necklace. I love your outfit. Like if that's how they are in the interview, that's probably how they're going to show up to work.
Yeah.
And
That's who they
so,
are.
and it's nothing. And I love that you pointed out that like, it could work for somebody else, but not work for your team, because that's
Yeah.
what made me think about, it kind of made me chuckle a little bit, because I always start all my calls with, hey, how are you? How's your day going? How was your weekend?
Yeah.
And it's really because one of our really like core values is self-care, and making sure that everybody that you're like, I have told my team, like, if you need a mental health day, just take it, right? Like don't
Yeah.
just and so I always want to check in, because I want to see how are you doing, right? And I really asked that question genuinely. And so me thinking about like, okay, like when I'm thinking about hiring and adding more people to my team, I hadn't really thought about that social element of it, of like, how are they showing up to the interview? Are they really social? Are they not? Right? Because I might end up having someone on my team where I'm like, how's your day going? And they're just like, fine. And I'm like, oh, well, goddamn, my bad.
Exactly. But in a certain role, that person's perfect, right? It just may
Yeah,
not be the role where you want them.
yeah,
And yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah. So so because one of the things we talked about, like, and I think that one, your hiring process is a big part of it. Also, I did want to say before I move on, like that hiring someone to assess someone for a skill set is genius. And if you need me to evaluate your marketing people, please let me
I
know.
will let you know. Yeah,
I will actually create a service for you for that, because it's interesting, because because I was hiring for a marketing role, I felt very like, okay, I could evaluate her. Like I put her through a test, looked at, gave her some data, looked at how she analyzed data and how she kind of put things together. And I knew the answers because I'm a marketing person and I know Facebook ads. And so I know how to read Facebook data. But if I was hiring a web developer, I'd just be like, oh, I have no idea how to evaluate whether this code is right, right? I have no idea how to evaluate, people who, like, an HR person, right? Like, or do they have a good personality or not, right? How do I know if they know how to vet people, like, right? Like, and so it's a great idea. I want to make sure that I drop that for everybody, to make sure that if you are hiring outside of your skill set, it's great. It's really important to have those, like, personality kind of interviews, and make sure that that person fits well with your team first, but then also making sure that you do have someone that you can come in to hire, that you can hire for their time for a little bit, to actually evaluate that person for the hard skills. But what I wanted to start to ask about, as you mentioned, you have a no meeting culture, all that kind of stuff. Y'all are really heavy in Slack and things like that. So what are some tips, or how do you really kind of maintain that team? Because I know you've mentioned people have been on your team for a long time, but once they're actually in, what are some things that you do to make sure that they stay for a long time?
Yeah, I think part of it is figuring out what their goals are. Like one thing we do every year is, at the end of a year, I was like, we have like kind of not an exit interview, but we have like a year exit interview, where it's like, hey, what did you feel you did great at this year? Where do you feel you need to grow this year? What are your goals for next year? How can I help you get there? How can I be a better boss? I really think the secret sauce to team retention is that they are achieving their goals by working with you. Like, they are not here to help me achieve my goals. Like, I am here to help them achieve their goals. So like, if they, let's say, for example, picking one of my more recent hires is a project manager, and I'm training her as a technical project manager. And so when I hired her, she'd never worked on web projects before. She'd never worked in tech, but I could see in her profile, like her personality, she was very like left brain thinking. I knew she had the right personality, and I could train the hard skills. And because sometimes, like, going back to what I said about hard skills, soft skills, in some roles, it's totally fine to train it, right? If you're hiring a web developer, okay, you definitely want someone who knows what they're doing, right? But there's certain roles where, like, if you have enough, it's like that cliche, that expression of like, hire for character, train for skills, right? In some cases, that's fine. In some cases, not so much, but in some cases, that's fine. And so I met her, and I could see that she was a very like pragmatic thinker. I knew she'd be fine as a project manager. And oh my God, I totally just lost my train of thought. What was it you just asked me? Oh my God.
You were talking about how you do a year exit interview.
Oh, the exit interview. Yes. Thank you. Oh my God, thank you so much. I'm so sorry. I totally just like derailed my thought for a second. So, and she had told me when I hired her, she wanted to learn about technical project management. And So I know for her to want to stay on this team, she needs to be learning technical project management.
Yeah.
So I hired her as an assistant, like as a project management assistant. And she told me that she would do VA work as well. But a project manager is a very different person than a VA. And so I know that if I have to keep her balanced at like 70% project management, 30% admin, or she's going to get bored as hell.
Yeah.
So I have to be conscious of that. Like, if I want her on this team and I know her goal is to build her project management skills because one day she wants to run her own agency or something, I have to know that. Or like, I have to know, like I've got one guy on my team and he only works part-time because he goes to school part-time and he's worked with me for 5 years and all he wants is like part-time income and he doesn't want to work on hard jobs. He wants like easy, fast, pick me up web development jobs, like nothing heavy. So I send my easy work to him, right? But if I gave him this big hack cleanup project, he's not going to love that, right? So it's like I send that to other people who like that deep divey thinking, break your head kind of stuff, where I send him the, hey, can you move this blah 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 and just stack up a bunch of these like small fast tasks. And he's like, great, yeah, happy. And he's worked with me for like 5 years. And so it's knowing your people, knowing what they want, making sure they're getting it. Obviously paying them well. Like everyone makes above market rate, like for what, regardless of where they live. Everyone's paid the same. Like if you're like half my team is in Brazil and they make the same as my Canadian guys. So it's like the developers all get paid the same. I think it's like respect and knowing their personality and knowing their love language. Like I said, like some people on my team, they don't want to hear from me. They're like, hey, just, I know nothing about their personal life. And some people like, they want to, they want to like have more connection to our level of connection, which is low for most teams. But like, so it's really knowing your people and taking the time to figure it out. And if they say something like, oh, hey, sorry, I was late, my daughter was sick. It's like you said, being aware of that. It's like, okay, how is she doing? And it's not that we lead with that. Like, it's not that we live in this insensitive culture, but it's like, it's just paying attention to who is who and who needs what. And then also it's like being sensitive to me, like us as the leaders, being able to like dial into our people, that if someone feels off, it's like, how are we doing? Are you still okay? Do you still like this job? Like, are you happy? How can we make this better? Like making long. So this is a super long, extended way to answer your question, but I take creating empowering jobs very seriously. So I don't just put them in a job and then expect them to stay. It's like I wake up every day with the intent to like thinking about everybody. Like, okay, when was this my React guy? Like, okay, is he doing work that he enjoys? Is it challenging enough? Is it like too much? Is it not enough? I pace everybody really well so no one works weekends. Like no one, I don't take rush work. So because I hate putting my team in a frenzy. I refuse, like I won't sell work to clients who are kind of a spaz. Like I only take nice clients because if my team and I are all working client facing, I'm not ever going to throw my team under the bus with someone who's going to be kind of a jerk. Like, so I really protect my people. Like I really protect them and like try to create as good a job as I can for them. So whatever that looks like, I mean, working in tech is gonna be different than if you were working in like content marketing. Obviously, it's gonna be totally different vibe and different culture and different. But I think it's just, yeah, like what do your people need and like not treating everybody the same, respecting everybody's differences. Like I have this woman on my team and she's Muslim. So she was off for all of Ramadan, and I was like, okay, like that's fine. Right. And so yeah, it's like everyone's different. Everyone's their own thing. Everyone's got their own deal and knowing what that is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's that very intentionality again about making sure that their love cup is full as much as possible in a professional way, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's definitely, such great advice because I think a lot of times we think, oh, I'll just go hire someone who, to do it for really cheap. But it's like, well, they're still people, right? And so we want to make sure, like you're saying, like people in Brazil and people in Canada, they're making the same. It's like the pay scale is based on the role, not necessarily the person where they're at. It's, paying attention to what they need. I love that you talked about like they like, your company does not, like, they're not in your company to necessarily help you reach your goals, right? They are here because they have goals of their own that they want to achieve. And it makes me think about my team, and like, the person we just hired, she just was like, hey, I really want to do some stuff that, like, she has, a full-time job working at a big company. She's like, I really just want to be able to do some stuff that's meaningful to me, right? I want to be able to feel like I get it. Someone who's like, I used to work at Zappos, and used to, like, being in that environment, you kind of feel like you're a number somewhat. Like, you feel like, yeah, and the projects are so grand that it's hard to feel your individual to feel how your individual contribution actually helps move the needle forward. But with some of our clients, like, we can directly see, like, oh, we put these things in place, and that actually does help them to, grow their business, or it does help them to streamline what they're doing, and it does help their team to, feel appreciated, and, to feel excited to have someone that they can lean on to talk marketing, right? Or to help them to get better and help them to, improve their skill set. And so it's really, really, like, I thought that was just so important that you said that it's creating empowering jobs, but not necessarily just creating a job for someone to be able to do. But if you want them to stay around for a long time, you do have to take the time to understand what they need, what they want out of the job, why are they here, how do they work, and how can we create an environment where everybody feels respected and feels like their contribution is helping them to get closer to their goal. So that's fantastic. Last thing I wanted to ask is, like, if you're thinking about one piece of advice that you wish you'd had before you started hiring, specifically your remote team that are a little bit different than, like, someone that you're going to see every day. What are some things that you wish you'd known before you started on this journey, or things that you teach your clients in your coaching program as they're on this journey, right? Like, what is one thing that you think that you wish they would have known, or that you make sure that they know before they get started on the journey?
I think, because I've always run a remote team, so I definitely relate to this. I think a lot of women in business, they struggle with firing people. So they hold on to bad talent too long, so they don't want to be the bad guy. So what I like to do is, it's this same thing. It's like hire slow, fire fast. Like, but it's like, I like to set the conditions when I'm hiring somebody. It's like, if I'm going to fire you, it's going to be because of A, B, C. And I know my non-negotiables. So I know what for me does not work under any circumstances. So I like to, like, when I hire somebody, I like to lay it out really fast and to be like, look, this is what I need. This is what you want. This is what I want. Like, we can, like, obviously we're aligned on that. I obviously would hope to not have to fire you, but if I am going to fire you, it is going to be because of this. And it, for me, that would look like bad communication. Like, if you don't get back to me within 90 minutes, if we're on Slack and we've agreed to both be on Slack between 10 and 2 Pacific time, and you do not reply to my question within 90 minutes, more than like a few times, not cool. Like, to me, that's one of my things, is like, if you're a web developer, I know you're head down, but I need you to set an alarm on your phone, and every 90 minutes you look up and you check Slack, because I may need to move you. There may be something else. Like, I may need, client may have had I need to pivot you somewhere. Client has a question, or like, I need you to me, for example, that's just an example. So if you cannot give me the communication I need, that's a non-negotiable. If you do not check your own work and it comes to me with, it's chaos, and you don't QA your own work, or you don't use the QA team to support you, unacceptable, right? Like, whatever it is. So I know my non-negotiables. And so it's like, when it comes time to actually, like, firing somebody, if that has to happen, like, I've never had anybody quit, but I've definitely fired people where we follow like a 3-strike system, where it's like, hey, I'll let you know once, we'll talk about it again. If there's a third time, you're done. Along the same issue, right? And I know that. And so there was a very strong sense of consequence. Like, my team stays with me, but I always let people know, like, make no mistake, like, kindness is not weakness here. Like, they know there is definitely fear of God, and there is a hierarchy. Like, they know that, because they've seen me fire other people, right? So but it creates this standard of excellence, though, where, like, everybody's awake, right? Everybody's paying attention. And it's not like I'm the chillest boss in the world. Like, once someone's in the system and they're working, and I'll leave you alone for days at a time. Just do your thing. Like, I trust you. Like, cool, do your thing. And I'm here to support you if you need me. But a lot of women in business, they lose sleep and so much stress around not knowing how to get people off their team.
Mhm.
And it's so much easier if you front load it by being like, look, we have a 3 strike system.
Mhm.
I will fire you. Do not be mistaken.
Mhm.
Like, you are here to do a job. You do not do the job, you're done.
Mhm.
And it's like, I like to tell women in business as well, like, for me, this is just me. And I'm not saying this works for everybody, but it's like, I can be your friend, but I'm not your friend. I'm your boss. Like, I'm not your buddy. Like, I can love you and I love you and I would go to, like, I would take a bullet for anyone on my team, but like, I am not your buddy. I write the checks here.
Mhm.
You do not do the job. I do not pay you.
Mhm.
And as long as we have that in common, okay, yeah, we can get along and support each other and like cheerlead each other and be friends. But we're not friends. Like, I have some colleagues who are like, oh my God, I have had this person on my team for like months and they're not doing their job. I'm like, months? Like, no, you're not a charity. Like, but women, we do that. Like, we always want to accommodate and support and love and cheerlead and like be the one when someone's hurting. It's like, okay, that's great. That's great in your friendship, not in your business. Like, so I don't know. It's kind of a soapbox thing for me, but you need that front load of the rules so that when it comes to it, there is no surprise what's happening.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense? Like, that
Yeah.
sounds kind of edgy, but it's honest, right? It's honest, and it gives you it protects you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's really important that you said to let them know what is going to get them fired, right? Like, if you don't do these things, this is what potentially would have me have to fire you. So that way they know, like, okay, I know I need to get my communications on point. I need to make sure that, I go through the process of like having a Q8 or whatever process we've set in forth before it comes to me. And so I think that is just really important to make sure that people understand that up front. And then also, because then when you're going through and you have to have that conversation, one, you have a kind of a checklist for yourself where you're like, this person doesn't communicate. This person does not follow our processes. This person is rude to clients, right? Like, I've had, 1 or 2 clients say that person is rude, right? Like, so it's like kind of like giving yourself that permission to go ahead and say like, yes, I did actually, check those boxes. And that gives you a little bit more confidence of saying like, you know what, I did actually try to get this person to, I corrected them. I tried. So I did my due diligence to make sure that this person could be successful, but they still, drop the ball. And therefore this is just not the place for them. Right. And let's let them go find the place that works for them, and me find someone who is going to actually follow the rules, who is going to make sure that they are on point with their communication and those things. So I think that it's important for the employees to know that, but it also helps, at least in my perspective, it helps me to feel a little bit more free in being able to say, you know what, I did actually, go through these 3 things, and we've said it multiple times, but now it's at the point where we just have to gotta let that person go.
Absolutely. Exactly. So it's like when it comes time to actually like on that 3rd strike, you're like, look, I understand if there's some sort of circumstance that's causing this issue to keep happening. However, as we discussed, this isn't going to work on this team. I appreciate the time that you did put in, and we're just going to call it a wrap. We're going to wrap this up. Like, but there's no shock. There's no surprise, because at that point you've had 3 conversations about it. And if someone isn't respecting the rules and 3 times, like, you don't owe them anything. Like, I just feel a lot of women, we feel like so indebted to like take care of everybody. And it's like, well, it's got to be reciprocal, right? It's got to work both ways. Like, we don't pay someone who's not doing the job. Like, why would you do that? Like, you break your, so I don't know. That's just, I feel like women, it's okay to be assertive if you're the boss. Like, you write the checks. It's okay to want what you want and get what you want.
Yeah.
So, and there's 8 billion people in the world. Someone's going to do a better job. Like, you know what I mean? This person is not the only person who could do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think that this has just been such a great conversation, and I'm excited that we got to have it. So can you tell everybody a little bit more about how they can work with you and how they can connect with you if they want to reach out to go deeper?
For sure. If anyone's looking for help with team building, head over I have a landing page. It's got a quick little webinar about what I do. It's called freeupmytime.biz. And they can just book a call, we chat, see if the program makes sense. And then if obviously anybody's looking for help with their website stuff, they can head over to my website, which is onpurposeprojects.com. And we do like custom dev. And yeah, so anything along those lines, or LinkedIn, they can reach out, ask me any question. And if there's anything I can do to help, obviously answer any questions. Slack community.
Yeah.
You're awesome, Slack community.
Love that. Love that. Awesome. Yeah, y'all. Well, all of the links will also be in the show notes. So if you are looking for any of those links, please make sure that you go visit the show notes, and we'll have links to all of Natasha's stuff. So yeah, thanks again, Natasha, for coming on and giving us such great information. I'm so glad we got to get the perspective of someone who has done this, right? Like you've been there, done that, and now are teaching people how to do it. So thanks for coming on the show. All right, y'all. Make sure that you please subscribe to the show. Drop a review if you found something helpful. We will be back with another episode next week. So that's what I got for y'all today on the podcast. I'll talk to y'all next week. OMG, that episode was packed with gems. Are you ready for more? Head over to stacyzeal.co/podcast to get the show notes and to sign up to get our top 5 podcast episodes to help you streamline your marketing so you can make this your $1 million year. Head over to stacyzeal.co/podcast.